Hello, and welcome to another installment of Prospecting for Gold with your old friend Craig Robertson. I like to call this episode, Please Do Try This at Home. This is an exercise guaranteed to have your wife kill you and make a horrendous mess and probably end a marriage, but we're talking about panning for gold here, so it's probably worth it. What you see here are the essentials for today's exercise. You need a high-tech swimming pool full of water, a gold pan, a sniffle bottle, a rag if you're a wimp, and then 2 buckets of clay. Now that's going to be the hard part. I am blessed with living in Northern California near some clay deposits in the river. This is about a 1/3, maybe a 1/4 full bucket. That is what the mud looks like as it comes out of the river. It is thick and gooey, a little bit smelly, not too bad, but it is really like Elmer's glue. And what I did is I got this bucket today, and after about 10 minutes of agitating it by hand, it turns into this ridiculous stuff. But you can see I just put my hand in and I worked that clay in the water that I brought it home in. And then there's a big rock there. Well, it'll probably turn out to be a big piece of gold. There's lots of little particles, and I didn't really break up all the mud, but most of it. That's where you need the rag if you're a wimp. Don't want to lose any of the gold that I might have got. The object here, I could use my sluice box, but some of this is not broken up, and so I want to use that pan, because if the clay isn't broken up, I can then break it up at that juncture. So this water will soon be very dirty. So again, you need mud, water pan, and a beer. Oh, a hose is going to be needed, and a ladder with a little device here to hold your cell camera so that you can document the interesting process of panning. So that bucket is homogenized. This one will soon be homogenized, and then I will take you through the panning. Please do this at home. I hope your wife's on vacation. Okay, campers, a quick update on technique. I've made a little progress here. So that was the original smoothed out Elmer's glue, and this is mostly full of water. What I did is I took this, broke it up as much as I could, and then I put the hose on high power at the bottom to use the hydraulic force to break it up even more. And it's fun to play with mud. So washing all this stuff in, and then you can see I got it on its high beam, and I'm just randomly blowing the rocks at the bottom. Again, I'm just hoping to break up the small pieces of mud that I didn't get to. Also, this material has a huge amount of black sand in it, so I really want it to be pretty dilute when I put it through my my pan, because if it's thick, everything's going to go out. I know that the gold is 19 times heavier than the black sand, but it's so viscous that I think you could lose gold into the water along with the black sand if you weren't careful and if you didn't thin this out quite a bit. So 2 messy buckets, 1 messy hand. I'll keep you posted. Okay, so here we go. Move this bucket. Move your knee pad in. Dump your sniffle bottle. And down goes the gold pan. Taking out the fancy hose. Using a kitchen implement. Again, we're trying to get our wives mad at us, so we might as well use all the things she uses for Thanksgiving. If I take the real thin water at the top, I'm just going to show that there really shouldn't be anything in this layer. Boy, that water's going to be muddy in a second. This should just be all the really, really microfine clay material. mess it is. So, one piece of black sand. Reaching down to the bottom, grabbing a chunk. Oh yeah, that's just like biscuits and gravy, only better because biscuits and gravy does not contain gold. So there you can see I scooped up some of the mushed up material, and then it's still thick, it's still difficult to work with, and getting separation is going to be a trick. But we'll see what we can do. I figure I didn't have to pay for the dirt, so if I waste the gold, well, then I was just an idiot. And there's rocks and stuff like that. I'm starting to see some of the things that you see normally when you pan, so I'm getting a little bit of separation. There goes the water in terms of looking very muddy. My grandson would probably like to be here. Okay. So again, I'm seeing some rocks, getting some material. It's still very thick, so I'm trying to make sure that anything settles down that needs to settle down. Not catching any glimpses of any gold. Again, this is much harder to keep this stuff from just settling at the bottom. It's very hard to get any separation as opposed to usual, river gravel. Just because A, it has so much black sand, and B, the silt, the little clay silty particles are just really tenacious and holding together. So we'll see how well this process works. Down by the river, if I was doing it down there, I would be I'd be putting this over the sluice, making sure that it was broken up kind of individually. I have not tried this technique. It looks like it's going to be painstakingly slow. But luckily I know how to edit videos, so you won't have to see all of this. Okay, now I think I'm actually moving the dirt pretty well. It's thinned out in terms of being clay. So let's see if I can be a little more aggressive in terms of the wash. One of the things I was worried about was that this water was gonna get so clayed out, so black and brown and yucky, that I actually wouldn't be able to see any of the gold particles. So we'll see if that happens. So far I'm not seeing anything. Looks like gold, but you can see this huge amount of black sand that's trapped in this clay layer. It's really remarkable. I mean, you can see why it concentrates gold, because it concentrates this black sand. I've never seen it concentrated like this. Okay, nothing at the top. So either I'm doing a good job sorting it, or I'm washing the gold out like a rookie. I think the good thing is I've gotten rid of almost 100% of the clay. So now it is just black sand and gold. So now it's kind of like the usual kind of material where you're just trying to separate the two out without an adhesive. Okay. There is no such thing as dead air on my programs. It may be dead entertainment, but it's not dead air. Okay. Still don't see anything. That's either a good sign or a bad sign. I'm banking on some flakes being underneath all this mess. And again, I'm getting that typical kind of separation that you get where some little rocks of heavier nature are settling out. Okay, I'm going to cheat and do a spin and see if I can see anything just clay everywhere. Wouldn't you know that the first one that I scoop up doesn't have anything to show? don't think I'm going to get out of any gold in this run. After I made the slurry up over here, hopefully all the gold went right to the bottom. So what I'm going to do is make my first big mess by pouring off the top part of the water in those buckets and getting down to really the heavy stuff at the bottom, which should contain the gold. And then through the miracle of photo editing, I will show you what I get at the end and see if I've made a complete fool of myself or if I'm rich. Yep, nope, nothing in this pan, sorry. Up, down to the bitter end. Nope, nada. Well, that's because the big nuggets are all down at the bottom. Okay, check back with you in a sec. Okay, I guess you would call this part 2 of my please do this at home experiment. You can see this looks different than just a second ago. I was panning out the black sand and the mud and hoping to find the gold, and I wasn't having much luck. It occurred to me that any of the gold in those buckets after I'd washed them out so heavily was going to be at the bottom, but I didn't want to throw the top away. So I have a stand for my sluice, and so guess what? I did this. I just hooked it up with a 5-gallon bucket, and I am panning it through, dropping it through, and it's really working kind of well. Arbitrary height. I have a big fish tank, and I have an old pump that I don't use much anymore, and it works just gangbusters. So I washed out one bucket. You can see it in the back upside down. I'm going to do what's inside this guy. Next, you see the slurry. So I'll dump that through and then pan out the remains, and I'm going to tell you whether this was a fun experiment or not. Just afterthought, I stuck a little right angle 3/4 inch PVC pipe to make the water go up, giving a nice sort of river-like effect. I'm about as proud of myself as I could be. So anyway, hopefully in that mess there is some gold. I'm going to turn this off, pan it out, and get back to you. Well, after all that work, that is the results. That one infinitesimal little flake of gold in that big old green pan. I'm a little surprised. Usually from this area of clay I'm getting a lot more in general. So I'm not sure. I guess I just picked the wrong kind. I think the system worked. It's just I didn't get much gold. I'll try it again. The reason I had to do this is because I didn't have much time to be at the river, so I couldn't pan it out there. So I thought, well, if I can only spend an hour, I'll do that, and then one of the days down the week. Plus, I hear a lot of friends say, oh, I just, get the concentrates or get the raw material and bring it home and sort it. I don't know. I don't do that. And I don't know if I will. The one thing I have to say is, as convenient as this is, it is not nearly as fun as being at the river. That is not a High Sierra river. So, will I do this again? Maybe, if circumstances dictate it. But I certainly won't make it a practice, because as much as I like my house, it's really not as pretty as the Bear River. Well, I'll talk to y'all later when I have another installment.